Hello everyone, welcome back. I wanted to explore today some data that was released by the British Columbian Centre for Disease Control in Canada. We are in May 2022 right now, and the data that was released was for the entire month of April. So there was an image that got circulated on the internet a lot that is on this website right here. And if you scroll down, you'll see the tab that says Vax Donut Charts. And when you click on there, you will see this image right here. I just wanted to have a quick look at it. I wanted to do some observation of some of the official data that is being released by the Canadian provincial government, in this case, British Columbia. And I will be doing some very straightforward math with this. Nobody needs to be an expert to do this. These calculations, and let's see what we find out. So this is the donut charts that they've been working with, and right off the top you can see that we've got an entire population of 5.3 million people. What I'll do is I'm going to purposely draw right off the top a nice little circle here. This is the population of BC. Entire BC, 5.3 million people. Notice right off the top that even though these charts look exactly the same size, they actually represent very different sizes of numbers. So what is 5.3 million? We have 8,358 cases. So we want to look at total people versus cases. If we wanted to find out what the percentage of cases compared to the actual number of people in BC, we would have to calculate for X over 100%. Right? That will equal the number of cases, which is 8,358 over 5.3 million people. Right? So out of that, we can derive that X is 835,000 over 5.3 million people. Right? And that comes up to be about 0.157%. So total BC cases would in this case be 0.157. Now to put that in perspective, we would want to imagine, so we would have out of the entire population, this would be something like 25%, right? Then half of that would be around 12.5, right? 12.5. Out of 12.5, if you were to imagine, 1% out of that, the 1% would probably be something like this, right? And then what we're looking is at a tenth, more or less, of 1%, which would, let's say, be a little p size here, okay? Small p. Okay, so that right there, let me just erase this area so that it's not confusing too much. So that right there is all cases in BC. Okay. Now, if you have a look at the number of deaths, which are compared to 8,000 are about 200, we can already see that that's 2 orders of magnitude off from 8,000 to arrive to 200. So the deaths would be in here somewhere. See, probably like 1/100th of this would more or less be a dot. So those are the deaths. Total deaths. The total deaths. So this is the percentages that we're dealing with. Now, even though we're working with such a small number, we also have to remember that we also have incidental versus true COVID deaths. So that dot would potentially go and become even smaller as a result of paring down the data. We also have to remember that a lot of people have comorbidities. What that means that we could get biased data, because the people who we're looking at in this entire picture are mostly people who are elderly and not younger people. So that dot right there is actually data mostly for the elderly demographic. So I'd like to just really point out that the entire vaccination program and the entire global pandemic response with all the masking and the mandates and the lockdowns are over this one dot right here out of an entire population of BC. And now let's have a look at the claims of what would happen if people were not vaccinated. Okay, the way I'll tackle this through one commonly argued way, which is to point out that these 7%, this 7% right here that we have is about, so non-vax deaths are 7%, which when it comes out of 204 people equals to about 14 deaths. So the argument would be whether we're doing all this to prevent 14 deaths, essentially, that are not vaccinated. However, there's another way of looking at this issue from what would have happened if nobody got vaccinated angle. And the claim is that if we hadn't vaccinated everybody, that the amount of deaths would have gone from this dot, and it would have been of orders of magnitude, so maybe something like this. Like so. And the claim is that this bubble would burst, and people in this entire group that were not unvaccinated would have died. So the way to look at this would be to look at what we seem to have as a control group here, which is these right here, 14% unvaccinated people. Because 14% is a very large percentage for a scientific study, considering that we are even here working off of 8,000 cases to derive conclusions and post it directly on the government's website. So 14% unvaccinated people is a very large sample size to see what happened to them. And currently we have 14 deaths right here out of the 14%. You can just extrapolate from there and think, so out of 100%, you divide by 14% to see how many times does the number 14 contain 100, and we got number 7. So all we have to do is multiply 14 deaths unvaccinated times 7. And the number that we arrive is 98 people. So if we had vaccinated the entire population, the bubble would actually shrink from the data that we see right here, which is 204 deaths in total, which is with the vaxxed option, to an extrapolated 98 people with a non-vax. So there we go. What should we do with this data or with this analysis? I'm curious to see if you can let me know where I'm going wrong with this one, because it seems like pretty straightforward mathematics to me. From there, quickly to calculate it, that if we didn't vaccinate everyone, X out of 100%, right, equals 98 deaths over 5.3 million people. And that is 0.00185%. That's what the result would be if we didn't vaccinate anyone. And that is basically the dot that we're looking at, the half a dot that we would be looking at over on this chart right here. Okay. I really have no words. I'd love your comments. I'd love you to ask people in your life what they think of these numbers and how they calculate them and how they would explain the discrepancy, because usually the argument is such that if we hadn't vaccinated everyone, it would explode. And I've done a few more videos that I posted on this channel that already explored the discrepancy between the claims of what could happen and what just keeps not happening, according to basically claims that more and more people are going to be affected by this, and the numbers seem just very, very small. And there you have it. Thank you for listening again. Would love to hear your comments. Subscribe if you feel like it. And this is the viewer taking a closer look.